Good morning, lovely people. Today I'm going to do a slightly different video, and it's a little bit controversial, but I want to talk about terrorism. I mean, I know it's happy, it's such a really happy topic, but this morning I woke to the news about Belgium. And I'm so sick of, I mean, it's easy to say, isn't it? I am so sick of this. Why can't we sort it out? Blah, blah, you know. Where's this magic wand so that we can sort it all out? Well, it's just, when the Paris attacks happened in November, I was angry. I was really angry. About how it's just the targeting. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think they should be targeting anybody, but they're targeting normal human beings. They're not targeting the political people or the government, or they are, but in a roundabout way. They're targeting us, and it's so frightening. So I just wanted to discuss what can be done about this. What do we have to do to sort this situation out? Now, these terrorist groups are being funded by something, by some people. Now, I know that, okay, at this moment, we don't know that it was ISIS. Now, you know, when this video goes up, we will know who was, well, we'd hope to know who was responsible. Now, so let's just stick with ISIS for now, because if that's the most prevalent organisation, isn't it? Now, I've done a tiny little bit of research this morning, and I was frightened to do it just because of what sort of things I was putting in a Google search, because I'm waiting for a knock on the door from some special forces, blah de blah, because it's frightening. It's just, I don't even want to Google this sort of thing for fear of reprisal, basically. And not only that, putting this video on YouTube with my opinions, and just my opinions. I'm not an expert, you know, I don't know. I just feel like it needs to be talked about more by the normal everyday people that, you know, it's affecting. I have family that live in large cities, and I'm not saying that I feel that there's an imminent threat to those cities, but they are more likely to be targets than where I live, which is quite a smallly populated area. There's not that many soft targets, which soft targets basically means not government built. They're not targeting government buildings or, you know, embassies or anything like that, which, you know, which is good, but they are targeting areas where they can cause the most casualties. And these casualties are people that have got no influence, or very limited influence, you know, as a single person. We can all get together and, you know, march to London with placards and banners, and you know, that's not helped the young doctors, has it? The student doctors. Anyway, let's not get into that. That's a completely different topic. So I did some research this morning to see whether I was going to get enough information to make this video, and you'll probably find that I haven't. And I'm not smiling because I'm happy. I just, up to now, as far as we can tell, 26 people have died in Belgium today because of an organisation. Well, we presume, I presume, because of an organisation that just wants everybody to live within their ideology. Now, so I've done some research, and there's only so much we can do. I mean, we've been doing it, and I say we, I mean countries with an interest in getting rid of ISIS. So it's, when I say we, I don't mean the UK, just the UK, but I mean globally, we as a people that want to not have to deal with this threat of violence all the time. So, as far as I can gather, we have 3 ways to try to deal with this. The first one being airstrikes, which we're doing anyway, and it doesn't seem to be preventing. I mean, it was a week before today's attacks, the Belgian authorities arrested whatever the guy's name is, something Salah, I think. Anyway, arrested that guy that escaped after the Paris bombings. So we got hit, I'm saying we again, we got him, and we don't know whether today's attacks were as a result of him being arrested, as like it doesn't matter whether you've got him or not, we're going to do these anyway sort of thing, or whether it was because he knew the plans for attacks and they wanted to make sure that these attacks weren't thwarted and brought them forward, or whatever, who knows. But so you don't know whether the attacks today are a correlation because of this guy being caught. But Paris wasn't as a direct result, as far as I'm aware, of any action that had been taken preceding that, other than France were involved in Syria. But there's quite a lot of us that are involved in Syria. Anyway, so I don't even know whether this video is going to be uploaded. I really don't. So anyway, I think in my opinion, we've got three ways to combat this. Airstrikes, which is what we're doing, and when Paris happened, I just said, you know what, just nuke them. Just throw a nuke at them and do away with it. Now, the problem with that is Syria may be the training ground. Syria may be the hub but there are factions all over Europe. I don't know about possibly in America, possibly in other countries in the world, but there are definite, you know, cells, terror cells, whatever they want to call them, in Europe. So airstrikes are not going to cause that much of a decline in the actual the suicide bombings and what have you in Europe, other than it may cut off the funds, the money that's coming in. So if we strike at their oil reserves, because apparently they're financed, the majority of their finance comes from the oil fields that they have acquired. And the Russian intelligence state that there are over 40 countries that are buying oil. Or, I mean, I don't know how old that statement was, but there are countries that are buying oil from ISIS. Not only are the countries that are buying oil, from what I've gathered, there are also Arab royalty and such like that are also contributing to their funding. So I do believe that there have been some oil convoys of oil tankers hit by airstrikes, which, you know, it's going to annoy them, but is it going to stop them? If there are countries where we get oil from, other Arab countries that are oil producers that sell us their oil, and they are also contributing to ISIS, it doesn't sit well with me. Now, I know we need fuel, but I don't know. I don't know what you can do. I'm just deflated. I'm deflated. Every time that something like this happens, I grew up in Manchester when the whole Northern Ireland thing was going on. And I don't pretend to know the politics behind it. It was years before I was born, and, you know, I just remember the feeling after Manchester was bombed. I remember how it felt to not want to go into Manchester town centre, and that a relative was in town at the time. Well, we lived very, very close to the centre of Manchester, and we could feel it and heard it. There was two, but the first one we knew something drastic had happened. So I've lived through not wanting to leave the house, and knowing that I've had a small child then. I think she must have been about 5 or 6. And the way that Northern Ireland was dealt with, and that's not the right word to use, but, you know, was through talks and compromise, and it took a long time, but we got there, and these people do not have compromise within their vocabulary. They don't. Their ideology is their ideology, and there's nothing that the Western world, I don't like saying Western world because we're, but anyway, there's nothing that in my opinion, there's nothing that the Western world can do or say to assuage these people. But other Arab nations, other Middle Eastern countries have got a far better platform, not of understanding, than we do. And as far as I'm aware, they're not getting involved. They're funding. They're not all funding, but these are generalizations, and please don't sue me. I'm a little person living in a tiny little corner of the UK. I have no money for you to sue me on. But anyway, I feel like European decision makers are not going to help end this situation without the support of Arab leaders. So without getting the Arab nations on board with trying to stop this threat, all the airstrikes in the world are not gonna stop it. Now we could talk about the way that ISIS recruit, and that they spread propaganda over social media type. We could talk about that, and which opens a can of worms about can't security forces access all this information. And we've got a big hoo-ha at the moment about why they shouldn't be able to look at your emails, and why they shouldn't be. You know what? Look at my emails. I have got nothing to hide. They're not going to come looking at my emails. My emails are boring. My emails come from Amazon. Please review this book that you've downloaded. I've got boring emails. And my social media accounts are just... So the only people that in my opinion, and I keep saying this, in my opinion, the only people that have got a problem with passing through this legislation so that the government or special forces or whoever it is, the security whatevers, can do some wizardry with the internet and have a look at what is being said where and in what context. The only people that can have a problem with that are people that have got something to hide. Now, I don't care about what anybody knows about me, because there's nothing of that much. There's nothing that could possibly harm me. I mean, personally, it cannot harm me. We all have things that in our private life that we don't necessarily want the rest of humanity to know about, but it's not things that you would be imprisoned for. You know, just, I know we are probably working really hard behind the scenes, but to somebody looking at the news, seeing what's happened again, 4 months after the last attack, it doesn't feel like much is happening. And I know I don't want to know the ins and outs. Do you know, ignorance is bliss, but it's also can be frightening. I'm presuming that our security forces are working all the hours that God sends to try to get as much intelligence together as possible to be able to work with it and come up with a feasible plan to stop any potential bombings or whatever, excuse me. But you just feel so useless. Like, I feel like there is absolutely nothing other than talking, just talking. There is no right or wrong answer to this. We don't know what we're dealing with. We know as in the threat of what we're dealing with, but we don't know the ISIS members are humans. They are. They're humans with an ideology that the majority of us does not agree with, and but they're so far gone. That's not even the right word. They're so ingrained in the belief of their ideology that some suited bureaucrat from Europe is not going to be able to reason with them, is not going to be able to discuss and compromise. They're not. These people want to eradicate us. They don't want us to have any influence. What do you do? What do you do in that situation? It's like, okay, so you can go and infiltrate terror cells, and you know, it's all a bit spooks, isn't it? You know, get our spies in there and do a bit of James Bond on them, and you know, everything will all work out in the end. That's you know, this is real life. And it's a very, very dangerous thing to do. I mean, somebody infiltrating a terror cell has got to have balls of steel, because they know that if there is the slightest inkling that they are not genuine, they're gonna horrific things will happen. So that's a big decision to make, to send somebody in there. I mean, I know these people choose to do that type of job. It's just not in my... I cannot fathom the bravery of that sort of situation. So anyway, that's going off on a tangent again. Lisa, sort yourself out. So before people start getting angry and wanting to nuke them, a bit like I was in November, and want just, it's frustration. I know it's born from frustration, but you have to understand, and I'm not talking from any experience whatsoever, but we have to look at the bigger picture. It is really, really difficult to pinpoint terror cells. I mean, somebody somewhere has to be willing to say something. Somebody who knows something about something who that may possibly be connected to some sort of terrorist activity has to say something to somebody pertinent, who will then pass that on and then pass that on and then pass that on, and maybe it'll come to nothing, but maybe it won't. And that has to happen with every terror cell, and we don't know how many they are, and we don't know where they are, and you know, it's a huge task to try and do this job. And you can't just sit there as a member of society and say, why are we still under threat, and why can't you do this, and why can't you do that? You've got to see that it's a very difficult situation, and it's going to last a long time. This is not going to be solved overnight, and it's, you know, it's not going to be solved overnight. So yes, it's very, very sad that more people have lost their lives today. It's very upsetting. Just know that there are people out there that are trying their best to sort this situation out. There isn't anybody that wants this to continue. Any sane person wants this to continue. You know, I am sure all the powers that be are trying to figure out the best plan of action, and we have to trust them. We have to trust them. There is nothing that we can do. And even if there was something that we could do, how many of us would want to put ourselves at risk? So yes, this one terror cell may have slipped through the net, but that doesn't mean that there hasn't been half a dozen more since the new year that have been thwarted. We don't know, because the governments of these European countries don't want you to be frightened all the time. And we don't need to know the ins and outs and how close we were to being blown up, and how, who wants to live like that? I mean, a little bit of ignorance is a good thing, in my opinion. Nobody would leave the house if they thought that every time they were going to go to the town centre they may get blown up. Nobody would go on holiday if they thought that, every time they went to an airport they were going to get blown up. No, so the government doesn't want us to live in fear, to stop our lives. I'm presuming. I'll have to put a disclaimer on this, won't I? Just so that you know that I'm not part of the government. I have no direct line to David Cameron, or anybody else for that matter. My thoughts are with the families of the people, the victims today, and I hope for a quick and decisive resolution to the whole situation. I mean, we talk about, you know, the people that are in ISIS, that are joining ISIS, that are going over to Syria and training, or training online, or however they're bloody training, who knows. But there's a reason for that, you know, for somebody to, we can say it's brainwashing, we can, but the initial contact with these people, there has to have been a hook, because most people would look at that and go, yeah, right, okay. And if the hook is the religion and the way that their interpretation of Islam, then they have to, the people that choose to go down the ISIS route have to, they feel something's missing, or discriminated, or I don't know, there's something. I don't ever know whether this video is going to see the light of day, because there is no answer. I have no answer for you. I don't have an answer. Nobody has an answer. Including the people that are paid to have answers. They don't have answers. They can only keep doing what they're doing and then support whichever area of the globe has been affected. Because it's not just France and Belgium, it's Africa. I mean, there are African countries that are being attacked, and why can't Europe, the United States, the whole of the Commonwealth, Africa, China, Russia, Japan, why can't we all join together and crack this? Is it that the leaders of all these different countries have got such an inflated ego that they couldn't possibly work together? What is it? You know, are there... Who knows? But if everybody works together, I mean everybody, even the countries that haven't been, and Arab countries, I'm talking Saudi Arabia, UAE, all of them, Iraq, Iran, all the rest of them, Afghanistan. Why? It doesn't feel like we're working together. It doesn't feel like it's only the people with a vested interest, you know, whose populations are getting blown up, that are doing anything about this. What sort of a world do we live in? I mean, nobody wants a world war. Nobody wants World War III, do they? But the only people that do are the terrorists. So we need to cut off their finances. At source, we need to figure out bank accounts, freeze assets. Or, you know, everything that they do on all the films that I've ever watched, that's what needs to be done. I'd like to speak to the parents of these terrorists. I'd like to know whether their parents are also terrorists, or whether they're just normal people who you know, and what the childhoods were like. And, you know, were they bullied at school? Or are they just psychopaths? They must be. Okay, I'm going to leave that there, and I will see about editing this. I've been talking for nearly 40 minutes now. There's going to be lots of umming and ahhing and maybe cutting of this video, so if you ever see it, that's because I'm being brave. Take care, everybody. Lots of love. Bye.